Hello everyone, it's Donelle McAdams and we're here today to have fun with circle sewing, and this is a little bit different than any of the template quilting. We're not using any templates, we're not using the ruler foot, but we are going to be using the features of either the wish table, the giant wish table, or you may have a deluxe table that has the holes in it. But never fear, if you don't, we have a solution to that. And it's a fairly new solution, and I think you're really going to like it. So I'm going to put our sample aside here, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to polish our table. So we're going to get our polish out because you have to have a nice smooth surface to do this. And so I need about a quarter size drop there, and I'm just using a microfiber towel. It comes with a small one, but I just use my large one here. And I'm going to go all over my table. Move this out of the way. And I'm actually even going to go onto the bed of my machine. So I want all of that polished up. And then I'm going to go back over and wipe it so that now we have got a nice smooth surface to do our circle sewing. Now if you have the wish table, which is what I've got here, you should have a bracket that looks like this, and this is just called a circle sewing tool. And you will notice that it has two little pegs that stick down. Those are going to go in our holes over here depending on what size circle we want. And when they're in there, the other end has a thumbtack on it underneath the pin more. And so from there to our needle is the radius of the circle. So that's going to be the distance that is half the diameter of the circle. So you can place it in a lot of different places. Now that's actually what I'm going to use, but for right now I'm going to show you if you don't have that capability. And trust me, if you bought your machine, if you bought your table before we had these, you can get one of the circle sewing tools that will fit in those holes. So if you have the holes, you're going to be able to use that. They now come with that, but they did not originally. So if you don't have that, but you have a flat surface, doesn't matter whether it's in a cabinet or it's so that part of your machine has an insert around it, you're going to be able to use this. And this is what's called our Circles and Straights mat. And so I'm going to show you how that works. The back peels off, and you can tell this is very much like the mat that we use for the grid glider that we use for doing our template quilting. Now mine has some lint and stuff on it, and I checked that out and I purposefully left it there because I want to show you if that happens to you. So let's say you put it away like that, you can simply use, and you can hear it peeling that off of there or pulling it off. Just use your lint roller. If you've got time, you can always rinse this in warm water and that will take it off also. But you're going to put that around your foot and your feed teeth. And right here it says align needle, so I've aligned my needle. And even more importantly, I need to make sure that I get this lined up with the line coming straight out to each side from where the needle is. Because this is going to be what we line up our other part of the circles and straights to be able to do our circles. So this is what the other part of the tool looks like. Two things you need to remember, and that is there is a line etched on here. It might be difficult for you to see, but that's going to line up with our vertical lines. And there is a line here going across, and that's going to line up with our horizontal line. And when we're using this, the straight side is what goes up against the lines here. Now, when you're using that, the distance from here to here is a 1/2 inch. So if we're doing an 8-inch circle, I need to put it so this line is lined up with the 8. So this line, this edge over here is going to actually be on the 7. But we're doing the 8-inch circle, so this would be lined up that way. Now, how is this little guy going to stick on there? Well, the back of it has a sticky. And I will tell you what I did is I just took a piece of paper because that is as clear can be, and I don't want to lose this because I need to replace it there. So because this is so sticky, the mats come pre-polished, but I'm going to tell you I recommend that you polish them again, not for the glide part, but just so this piece that we're going to put on there doesn't stick so well that it pulls the paint right off of there. So I'm going to put more polish on here, and that will keep it from pulling off the paint. Now you'll notice down here on the end, this hangs off. That's not a problem at all. It's not in your way, so just leave it there. It's not hurting anything. So what we would do if we were going to do let's start with the why is it called circles and straights. You can use this over on this side to get a straight line. So if you wanted to sew something at 3/8 of an inch, which is like right beside your foot, you could put that over on this side, and that could be your guide for the straights. So that's the way you would use it for the straights part of it. So on this side, it's going to go like this. So I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to say that we were going to sew a 5-inch diameter circle. So this is the 5. I'm going to place it on there so that the line that's going horizontal lines up with that, and I'm just going to set that down. There's no real need to push down on that because it's going to work just fine. So at this point, we would take this out. I'm going to talk to you about how we set everything up, but this would be the way you would use this tool if you don't have the table. So I don't know if anyone has any questions at this point, but go ahead and, ask them away because I have someone here. Megan is here with me again today, and she is going to be fielding those questions for us.
So this is not one that's come across yet, but you keep saying if we don't have this table with the holes, correct?
Correct, right.
Because they could have a table that just doesn't have holes.
That's correct. You may have a wish table that has the holes, but you may also have one of our other tables, or maybe you've had your table for years before we even put holes in them, and you would use this same thing. You have to have something to put this down on. Now let's say that this was a wood cabinet out here. Your machine is dropped in and this is a wood cabinet. This may not stick as well, but you can always put a couple pieces of tape somewhere across the edges there so that you would be able to hold it in place. So it would be fine. So now let's say we've already done our circle and everything like that. Then all we're going to do is, I find it easiest to just peel this back up first. So peel it up first, and you'll notice when I get here it's a little harder to peel up. But when I do that, then I can slowly pull this off and I won't have any problem with it. If you try to take it off without peeling it up, sometimes this just, sticks and you have some issues with it. You're going to want to put this piece right back on it, and you can see, or I guess I should say, you can see that you can't see that, and you want to put that on there, and this will give you so you could get it off easily the next time. Always store it with your Penmore, and then this piece we're going to take off because I'm going to use my table with the holes, and everything I'm doing, did you guys see that? That's how slick my table is. It just keeps going away from me. Everything that I'm doing, you can do with this circles and straights tool. So I will tell you, it's a great addition to our line of Sew Steady products because of the fact that you can now, with any machine, do this, and you don't have to have the table. Although I love my wish table, I wish everyone had one, but we're going to be able to do this now without that having to have that table. So this is my apparatus here, and so what I'm going to do is my first circle I'm going to sew about this distance. Now down here I have a measurement that says it's about 3 1/4, so my circle is going to be probably about 7 inches. So I'm going to take that off, And the first thing, and I know there's not a handout for this, but there's not a lot of notes to this, but the first thing you're going to do is put down a lightweight stabilizer. Now I'm using what's called Stitch and Ditch, and it's pretty much like exam room paper. So if you know what that's like. So I'm using that, but the thing I want you to notice is I'm using it so that what would be considered the smooth side is up and the more matte finish is down. And the reason I do that is because that seems to go around on my table easier than when I have it the other way. The other way just tends to cling to the table and it won't move nearly as smoothly. So I'm going to turn that back over so the matte side is down. Now some of the questions may be coming up, so what if we don't have Stitch and Ditch? That's perfect, that's fine. You can use lightweight tearaway stabilizer, that's just as good. And so you can get by with any of those. Now what I have done here before we get going is I have fused a piece of Heat and Bond Light to the back of this piece of fabric. And so I am not stitching through a quilt per se. And I can tell you it's not very easy to stitch through, well, it's almost impossible, and let's just say it is impossible, to stitch through a quilt bat. So I tried doing that. I thought I would be able to have it so that I could stitch through a quilt that was already put together. That was disaster. You cannot do it because the machine cannot turn this. So I've got some things in my way over here I've got to get out of the way so that we can go ahead.
And while you're doing that, I got some questions before we go too much farther. Vicki wants to know, she said that this is different than what came with my table with the holes. So I think she might have missed the beginning part about what you're using right now.
So are you talking about the fact that you may not have gotten this piece, Vicki? If you didn't, this is available. The first tables that were made came with just a single pin that you had to reach underneath and you had to push it up, and every time you wanted to move it, you had to do that again. So we came up with this piece called the circle sewing tool, and it makes it very easy to work with. So you can get that. They're $21, I think, and they are available separately. They're just simply called the circle sewing tool. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to put this back down. I've already got my, my stabilizer underneath there. And I have put thread in my bobbin that I'm going to use the whole time. But these are the fabrics, and honestly, these are just scrap pieces that I had left over from another project. So I pulled them out this morning, put some fusible on the back, pulled out some threads that look pretty with them, and said, okay, that's what we're using today. So I've got a rust color thread on there right now. I'm going to lay these down underneath so I can get a hold of them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch a circle. Obviously, that's what we're doing today, is sewing circles.
And you did say that even if their machine is set down into a cabinet, they can still do this.
Have to have a flat surface, but other than that, yes, you can do that. Now, each of my pieces have on the back, fused to them, Heat and Bond Light. And the Heat and Bond Light, I can't get one that wants to come off for me. The Heat and Bond Light is simply there because later we will fuse, not right now. But I'm going to set this on here, and always be sure that you've got enough room. I just kind of fold this in half so I can see. You obviously aren't going to press that there. But there's my center, and I'm going to take that and put it. Now I've had people ask me if there are patterns for this. I will tell you that I have one pattern, and that pattern is called Funtastic Circles. I don't know that there's any other pattern out there, but the thing about this is if you get this pattern, it's a pattern that I designed. If you get this pattern, it's going to teach you about 2 or 3 layers of fabric layered up. It's going to teach you about using a cording foot. It's going to teach you about stitching without stitches or without fabric underneath it. And it has a full-size template that you are going to be able to follow step by step by step. And the reason I'm showing you this is because other than that, everything I do is pretty much fly by the seat of my pants. I have no direction where I'm headed today. I'm just playing. But you will see that I've got a key on here that tells you whether you're using a straight stitch or a decorative stitch. The marks are the center of the circle. And everything is laid out so that you can learn, basically teaching yourself how to do circle sewing. So that pattern is available. And if you can't find it somewhere, let me know. It's sewbizmarion.com is the website, or just email me at sewbiz@indy.rr.com, and I'll take care of that. Now, you can see I've got plenty of room, and for this first one, I'm like, you know what? I've got a little more room. I'm going to go out a little bit farther. So I'm just going to take it out and put it into the next set of holes. You want to help me lift that up so I can see? Whoops, went out too far. There we go. And then I'm just going to spin this top fabric. I don't need to spin the whole thing to see that I've got enough space. So at this point, you want to make sure everything is pushed down on the pen because there are little ridges in that pen. And you want it down so that it'll rotate. But you don't want to put the pen more close down to your fabric. There's room under there for this to rotate. So now I'm just going to make sure my machine is set for a straight stitch. And it's not, so I've got to go back and do that. And I am just using my universal foot. It's the one you would use for decorative stitching. Now, some of you are probably wondering what threads. Today I'm using rayon threads. I have some 40s and some 30s. And the first time around, I'm just sewing a straight stitch. And you can see I'm just kind of petting this fabric out towards the lower right-hand corner. Now, I could sew this faster, but I don't want to make it so you can't hear me. But you can see how this is just rotating around. When we come back, I'll overlap it, and then I'll just touch my fix button and cut it. So I got right exactly back to where I wanted to be. I'm overlapping. I'm reversing just a bit. This is not something that makes it, a big deal. And then the thing that's nice about this is if you want to, you can take your piece off so everything's still connected. I wouldn't do it if I was using the other apparatus, the circles and straights tool. There we go. But now what we're going to do is I'm going to cut up to and next to my stitching. Now I purposefully use my applique scissors like this. So those of you that are ready to write in and say I didn't use them correctly, I used them the way they need to be for this process because I want to leave just a little bit of fabric on there. So by doing it this way, I don't endanger the fact that I'm going to cut off. And you can see I haven't even removed this from the pen there. And I'm just going around and snipping that off. Now we might as well jump right in with both feet on this first one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it in closer and do an inside circle. And of course I could layer up fabrics and do that also. So I could pick this up. I guess I can just do that so we can see that. So let me get a little piece of the green. Is there a little piece of the green over there?
This is the only piece you have of the green.
Oh, I should have some more somewhere, but maybe not. Okay, we'll do this one. This will be fine. So I'm going to set this on top of here. Whoa. Somebody out there is having a hissy fit saying she forgot. I've got it off of there now, and I'm going to set this on top. And at this point, I cannot have a radius larger than that, so I'm going to take it in.
The question has been asked, are you using rayon in the bobbin?
No, I am using just a regular all-purpose thread in the bobbin. Good question. You could, but I'm just using an all-purpose thread. So now I want to test to make sure I've got it on both sides, and I do. So I'm just now going to do a small, whoa, got my reverse on. Do a smaller circle. Now some of you may be wondering, I've got Pellon fleece on the back of this. I may have told you that. I fused that on the back because later down the road I'm going to be doing a class and I want to use this as a piece that I can then turn into part of a bag. So I'm making this so like I'm creating my own fabric. So now we're right there. I'm back stitching, cutting that thread. And now I'm going to cut right up around there. And like I said, when I begin, I really don't have an idea of where I'm headed. And I can use decorative feet for this next part. I could, put cording in and couch it down. You can do all kinds of fun things. And that's why yesterday I said, you could invite some of your friends that don't have any interest in doing quilting because we're just using the fun parts of our sewing machine plus a circle sewing gadget that we can do this with. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a decorative stitch, and I've gone through my machine, and that's the fun part of seeing all the decorative stitches that you may not have used. And I'm going to use one that's a little bit filled in here because this is a small circle, and that way it will get done a little faster. So what I'm doing is, you can see I'm not even really using, and it's going forward and back and side to side, but I'm not even using my hands on this one.
I think I'm going to pronounce the name right. Nanine said that that's a really cool idea of using this for a bag because she makes lots of bags, and so this gives her a new idea of what she can incorporate into the bag she makes.
Right. It's a lot of fun to create your own fabric. You've probably collected a lot of pieces and scraps that some of us, I won't call us hoarders, we're just being thrifty, but that's why I said all the pieces that I used today are just pieces that I had in a scrap pile. I could have used a little bit brighter thread on this one. I can tell that now, but you'll be able to see it when it comes around. And so while that's doing its thing there, let me show you a couple of things. Yeah. This is kind of the same. Well, this was the one I had at the beginning. Let's go with this one right here. This is a circle that was on one of the placemats, probably the same stitch that's going now, so that you can see that I did some of my template quilting. Actually, I did some fussy cutting, then did some template quilting, and then I did that applique on this placemat. And the thing that's nice about that is you can see how perfect that circle is. And it just went right through there very easily. So this is back going and doing its thing. I'll show you another one that I used. This is a pattern that I have that's called fan blade. And you can see in the center here, this is fan blades, and I've done some template quilting out here on the edges. But here in the middle, I'm trying not to block my sewing. Here in the middle, you'll see I use metallic thread and appliqued the center of that fan blade down, and then did a decorative stitch around it. And that was all done with my circle sewing. So that was done with a metallic thread. Now when I use metallic thread for this, I use what's called high-speed metallic, and it's designed for those who use it on long arms. So those of us that are quilting, we can use it too, and it will make it so that you're going to be able to have those nice perfect circles without a ton of thread breaks. So as you can see that coming around there, you can see that decorative stitch, and I even was showing you samples, and it's just going by itself doing its thing. Now this is the reason I selected this stitch for this small circle, is because when we do the bigger circle we want to get a little bit more done. So we're going to use a more open stitch. I hope I've got your minds turning on all the different things you can do, because if those of you that have used that fabric that crinkles up, I'm having a hard time thinking of it right now. Maybe one of you can help me out. But where you put the stuff on the back of it, texture magic. Texture magic. There you go. You put that on the back. You do some decorative rows of stitching, and then you put the iron to it, and it shrinks up like 75%. Well, not 75. It shrinks up 25%. And so you have texture. You could do the same thing with that. You could do a piece of that fabric and lay it down. In just a minute, I'm going to show you one. I did this morning. I pre-pleated a piece, put my fusible on the back, and we're going to make a circle out of that. So you could do that. You could do flip-flop pleats. There's all kinds of embellishment techniques that you can do, and then put them into a circle. You can even put decorative stitches on your fabric. You could put your quilting on there, because underneath this piece, it could have a piece of fusible, so it would kind of pop up a little bit. That blue one that I showed you does have that.
What's the name of that metallic thread again? They want to know.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what the name is. I'll try to pull one out here to tell you in a second. But on it, it said for high-speed quilting. And so it was designed for long arms. I picked it up at a show, and I never had one break in it. I've never had one problem. Now again, you want to make sure you get the right needle with it. Most of those threads will tell you on them what needle to use. I used a top stitch 90 when I was using the metallic thread. So we're almost to come to the end here. And I know that it's going to be a question as to what's it going to look like when it comes together. Usually just fine.
That was Lillian's question just now. Do they all end, or do they all match up beginning and end?
If you're lucky. So this one is now at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch my fix button, and it's going to tie a knot. And it did that faster than I was expecting it to. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to cut that thread, and you'll see there's where it is. I think it looks pretty darn close to being, right back and in the pattern. So I usually have no problem with that. It usually comes pretty much right back. You might have one. If there's one that's really large, you may want to consider doing a part of that so it's overlapped by another circle or something. So I'm going to change my thread real quick here, and I'm going to select another stitch and another color of thread. So I don't know about you, but I think on this one I want to find, first of all, my threads. Oh, yep, I put them down here. I'm going to find, I think I'll do a green thread on this. And like I said, you can use either 30 or 40 weight thread on that, because decorative stitches are designed to be able to handle those. Obviously, you can create your own decorative stitches.
Debbie wants to know the name of your pattern again. So
This pattern is called Funtastic Circles. It's a pillow wrap. It could be made, longer after you get going. Like I said, it's kind of like fly by the seat of your pants. But this can be done so that it's on a pillow, wrapped around a pillow, or you could make it into a table runner, I'm sure. So I am going to go ahead and thread that needle, and I'm going to go down here into my stitches and find one that goes rather quickly. And let's do this one right here. So what I'm going to be doing is, first of all, I always want to get my thread underneath there. And I used my cutter, so my bobbin thread was held in place, so it's not going to jam up or anything. And you'll see that this one goes a lot faster.
And to answer your question, Carla, this video will be archived. We will save it on the Sew Steady website. Will also be on Westerly by Me.
Yes, and there is not a handout for today. The main things that you need to remember are that you are using some sort of a stabilizer underneath. I'm using Stitch and Ditch. You can use a lightweight tearaway. And then each of the pieces underneath them have heat and bond light on the back of them. So that heat and bond light is mainly so that when you cut it out, first of all, it's not raveling now. And second of all, after we get finished, we can fuse it down so we don't have any problem at all with it. I like to use my 4-inch applique scissors, and in a few minutes you're going to see me use my little Snippies scissors that are like tweezers. And these are from Havel or from Moray also. Those are the ones that I used when I was doing the stitching yesterday also.
You've referenced a video from yesterday. Where can they find those?
They're on the Sew Steady site, and I know some people are saying they're having trouble finding them, but I checked right before we started today, and they're all there. So keep scrolling down, and you should be able to find them.
Also, Susan wants to know, when you're finished, what happens to that hole in the middle? Does it just get fused shut?
It will. It's not really as big as you think it is. It's kind of just like rubbing your fingers and it moves from side to side and it's gone.
And Carol wants to know, why did you do that really fancy stitch on the inside but not so fancy on the larger circle?
The reason I did that today is because, first of all, I wanted to show you that those, let me hang on, it's coming to its meat here. I want to make sure I don't mess it up. Okay, so I'm going to now touch my fix button and stop. And you'll notice that it knotted off, and now I can cut that. The reason I chose this here is I wanted you to see that you can do a very involved stitch and have no problem with it. But if I did that on every one of these that was real involved like that, first of all, it's not necessary, but second of all, it would take me a long time to show you today because everything would take a long time to go around the circle. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off. And for those of you that were worried about that center there, I really can't even find it. So I'm going to hold it up here so you can see. I don't really even see it.
It probably also helps to have a busy fabric as well.
Well,
or something with a pattern.
It really, I have not had any issues with it at all. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that pleated fabric and I'm going to come over here. And I need to get another piece of my stabilizer. And you can see this stuff tears off very easily, so I just keep putting it behind the area I'm working with. And pretty soon I'll have it all covered. So I'm going to go from underneath and set my piece, and I'm going to set that about right here. Now if you really want to totally plan everything out, you're not going to offend me. So I'm going to set that down. I'm going to take my pleated piece here and I'm going to pull the back off of it. And you can see that's holding that together. And I'm going to set this, yeah, I've got it out there too big, but I'll just set it right there because that's pretty much the center. And I don't want it going sideways like that, but that's the way I'm measuring it, so I know where I can put this to get it all caught on the fabric. So there's that. Oh, good, we're going to get it. So I'm going to turn this kind of at a diagonal like that, and I'm going to go all the way back up to here. So when I use this to make a quilt, and I'll show you a quilt that I've done, I do not do the whole thing. I do it in fat quarter sizes, and then I put that together, whether you want to put it together in a quilt as you go method, or if you want to put it together in just cutting the pieces, like the background pieces. So I don't use any kind of fleece or anything, I just use the background pieces. So while I'm talking about that, if you want to just get one of those up there that's not finished, Megan, I'll show that.
And we've got a few questions for when you're ready.
Well, this one's all tore off, so you might want to get one that has the... So this is one that is just the background and it's all ready to go. This is what it looked like before. And so it still has the paper on, and you can see this paper pulls off real easily. So I would just have my background and my stabilizer on the back, and in these small areas like this, I'm just going to take this and take my seam ripper around through there and get a hold of that, and then press it, pull it out. Now I will tell you that if there's little pieces like right in there, no, you don't need to worry about it. It's not going to be a problem unless you're using a real heavy stabilizer, which I don't recommend. So that's just coming out just like that. All right, did you have another question there for me?
I've got about 4 of them.
All right.
The first one is from Debbie. She just doesn't understand how this is turning without you actually turning the fabric.
It's because the machine is doing the work. The machine thinks it's sewing a straight line, but because it's limited by this, which is like the old compass that we had in school that had a point on one end and a pencil on the other, and you drew a circle. So that's the reason it's going by itself. So right now, this machine thinks it's sewing a straight line, but it's going around in a circle because it's limited by that.
All right. Judy would like to know what a fix button is.
Oh, on my machine I have a fix button and I have a stop button. And I really find it easier if I use them both together. So I do a fix, it finishes the pattern, the stop then just knots it and ties it. Now, the only reason that I'm having to help this right here is because I've got these pleats in here. So I'm going to stop right there and raise my foot just a smidge so that pleat flattened out. So you want to watch that as you're doing this so that you can get that around there. So if some of you probably are like panicked, well that's not any problem, it's just that I had held it in place so it couldn't go where it needed to go. So I'm going right around here. There's another one that's starting to pucker up, so I'm just going to raise my foot a little bit and I'm going to get that in place. Always stop with your needle down.
So going back to this other one that you did with the 2 circles, do you have to do the inner, let's see, I want to read this so I get it correct. Why do the inner circle before the outer circle? If you finish off the outer circle first, you would not have to reposition the fabric.
I didn't have to reposition that fabric. So I did it once and then put the inner, I see what she's saying. You're absolutely right. But it works just the same. It's not like you have to hunt that hole. It's still already there. So either way works. Like I said, it's fly by the seat of my pants and there's really no right or wrong to that. Now here's what I was talking about a while ago. I could cut this right like it is now. Or if it's more convenient, I can take this whole apparatus out. I'm just going to leave it in there because I can get to this. And this is where cutting with these applique scissors help me to keep a little bit away from that edge.
And for those that are coming late, can you tell us what that apparatus is?
That piece I'm using there is called my circle sewing tool. It now comes with the wish table. And I will tell you, my wish for all of you is to have a wish table because you will love it, first of all, and it will make all of your sewing so much easier. Your fabric just glides across. This table that I'm sitting on, not the wish table, but the table I'm sitting on, I haven't had my machine back down in the spot for that for over 5 years because I like to be able to just work with this. It gives me more room. I've got more room underneath there, And it's just really one of those things that those people that have a wish table that are out there watching, give a thumbs up if you I don't do it just to do it, if you really believe it, because I can tell you that I have people, I've been doing the shows for 5 years now, and I have people come back to the show the next year and they'll tell me the best recommendation you gave was for me to get that wish table. And it's really true. It's all custom cut. It fits your machine. And so you're about 3 weeks out when you order them, but it is really a godsend.
We're getting lots of those likes and likes.
Good.
And
so
hearts.
That's my testimonials out there is what you're seeing. The wish table is it's just great for all types of sewing. Now, I've got my stitching done there, and I'm not going to use green. I'm going to do a little bit bolder this time. So let's see what we've got here. I've got, how about, that's what we'll use. I've got a gold here. I'm going to say it's a Purdue gold since that's my alma mater. Maybe it's a different color of gold for you. And again, I need to select a stitch, so I'm going to come over here, and I wrote some down ahead of time. Let me see what I've got here. Go to the ease, and you'll find that you find stitches on here that you never even knew you had. So I'm going to do this particular one right here. And get my thread. Maybe I already put it underneath there. Where is my thread? No, it's hugging. Okay, put my thread underneath here and make sure I've got it so that it's going to come around in the right spot. And it looks like it will. Let's see here. Okay.
So the questions come across, does the attachment fit any machine or just the wish table?
It fits just the wish table. And then if you don't have the wish table, you can watch back on the beginning of this because I showed the circles and straights tool that fits any machine. Now I want you guys to notice that what I'm doing now, this particular stitch is going side to side. So it's doing this right here, but that's not a problem. It's still doing the stitch correctly. Now I can't go at super fast speed to have it do that stitch correctly. It's a feather-like stitch, and you'll see it when I get finished, but it's coming out over the edge and filling everything in. And these are the kind of stitches that at first I was afraid to try. And I will tell you that I have one on my pillow. I'm not going to show it to you right this second. I'll show it to you in a minute. That bunched all up. And when it bunched all up in one place, then it spread out in another place, and that was the cover project. And so what I had to do was come up with a solution because there was no way I could take it out. And so what I did was I took another color of thread and went over it with the same stitch. And now when everyone sees it, they want to know how I got that heathered look. And so if you have something like that that happens, then you can always find a way out of it. And that's what I found with that one, is I just took that particular stitch, did it again with a different color of thread.
So as you're coming back around, some people are saying they have older machines that don't have that fix option. Can they just do a back stitch?
Absolutely, yeah. You can just do a back stitch. There's no problem with that. You just want to make sure you secure it somehow, because it's just like any other project. You want your threads to stay in that project.
I do have to laugh. Some of the ladies on here are telling too much. They're telling how many wish tables they have for all their machines.
I'm not going to confess to that because I know there are at least 4 or 5 in this sewing room. And I will tell you, Not necessarily the wish table, but if you have a serger and you get one of the serger tables for it, your serger will become more like a regular sewing machine. Now I'm going to confess I don't like this stitch, but I'm sure not going to take it out. I'm going to find a way to go again, and the reason I don't like it is because it looks like this little chicken scratch that's coming out on the edge looks like my fabric is fraying out, and I don't want that to look that way. So we'll fix that. Now you can see this starting to bunch up there. I am going to just raise up my foot and push that underneath.
Melanie was asking about your scissors that you were using to cut that apart just a little bit ago.
My applique scissors?
Yeah, she wants to know what they're called and where she can find
They're
them.
4-inch applique scissors. Mine happen to be from Floral. And now that we're back, I'm just going to go ahead and backstitch just a bit, or I can do that stop and let it knot in one place. I guess I didn't get it pushed. Okay. But I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, why I don't care for the stitch. Now, like I said, I didn't know where I was headed before I started, so this is just the way we roll. You can see here it's bunched up a little bit, but it's this little bit that jumps out here that makes it look like my fabric is fraying out. So I don't want to leave that like that. So I'm going to get another color of thread, and we're going to have a unique decorative stitch here. So what I'm going to do is get that color.
Which is all part of the fun creative process of this.
Yeah, and you know what? If I was really doing this, I'd leave this go right now, and I wouldn't even worry about it. I'd come back to it later when I had a different thought. But you guys probably want to see, well, what's she going to do about that? And so that's what I'm going to show you right now. So I'm going to go back to the stitches that are more filled in and find one of those. And let's see what this looks like going over it. I think I want it going the other way. So I'm going to mirror image it. Don't forget you got those mirror image things on there. And let's see what this looks like. Well, that's going to be too heavy. That one's not going to work either. So let me go to another one and I'll think, and we'll come back to this one, because that's the beauty. Can you see it's not going anywhere? So that's the beauty of what we can do with this. So I'm going to use another big piece of fabric. Actually, let's do something a little bit different. Let's not use any fabric and get us a piece of stabilizer. This will be fun. Remember, it's the mat side down, and I'm going to put I'm not trying to hide it from you, it's right underneath there. There's my tool. I'm coming over here, and I'm going to see how big. And if we run into, whoop, pretty close. Better move it out one more. Could run over that circle, wouldn't matter, but I don't want to. All right, so let's get everything down there. They're having a party with those. You want to move that out of the way because that's getting caught each time. Okay, so now we don't have to do a straight stitch first. We can just do anything we want. So I am going to use this little stitch that's a flower, and we are going to mirror image it side to side, and here we go. Now remember, the machine thinks it's going straight, so that's why I'm just pulling this around a little bit like this so it gets an idea where it's going.
Brenda ordered a regular table a week ago. Do you think she can change that to a wish table? That's probably something she'd have to call in her.
I'm sure if you call So Steady, they will get that changed for you. I would imagine that's not going to be an impossible thing to do. This is why when I go in to do classes on the template quilting, I encourage all the stores to show their people before they order a table what they can do. Now, it looks like I'm coming right up to that, so here's what I would do. I thought I moved it out, and maybe I didn't. So I'm definitely going to touch my stop button, or I could backstitch, but you see it right now, it just made a knot there. So I'm going to finish that off by cutting it, and I'm just going to come right over here, put that foot down, and start again.
So you just made the illusion that the circle is underneath the one you just
Yeah,
made.
I guess. I wasn't intending to do that, but you know, I said it's fly by the seat of your pants. So this one's going to be a fun one, so I can show you how this works. Oh, that's just a little screw that holds in my quilt line. I vibrated, it vibrated out. Don't let me forget about that. It's always nice to know where they come from.
A lot of our viewers are loving all the inspiration they're getting from watching this.
It's a lot of fun, ladies, and I will tell you, and gents, I know we've got some men watching with us. There's so many things. Now this looks like it's going to come up and there's going to be a pucker. It's not going to be, because I'm not going to let it happen. Sometimes you just have to kind of ease that fabric. Oh my, you guys, I lucked out on that. So I don't want to do any reversing because it will reverse the design. So I'm pressing my stop button to tie off. And I'm going to cut. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to take this and I am going to move it in one set of holes. 2 sets of holes. I am going to, so for those of you that were wondering, you can see how I got right back to where I started. So it pretty much looks like nothing is, you know, there's no interruptions or whatever. But now, since I know what I did over here, there's no sense in having 2 starts and stops. I'm going to come over here, because I'm going to go all the way around anyway, and I'm going to mirror image that the other direction. So now when I start, and I know some of you are thinking, how can I get those to come right across from each other? You can't, because obviously the inner circle is smaller and it's going to have less of those. But you can sure do a pretty cool illusion of having them line up. You'll notice, I hate to even say anything, but even though I'm using a rayon thread and I'm sewing at a fairly high speed, I'm having no thread issues. Now I will tell you if you've been sewing with me like I've been doing all week, you're probably ready for a DNC on your machine, which is a dusting and a cleaning. And it never hurts to give it a little bit of tender loving care. I honestly don't know what people out there are doing if they don't have some sort of a hobby. I had to laugh. I saw on one of the Facebook pages today, it said, somebody said, "Aren't you running out of fabric yet?" And the response was, after I came to my senses after laughing my head off. I mean, and that's the case for most of us. We're certainly not running out of any fabric too soon. Okay, so
We might actually finish a project.
yeah, for sure. So here's my cut button. Now you remember when I went around, I skipped over 2. So I'm going back now to the one I skipped, and that's the holes in my table. This would be the same way if you had that other piece that is on the mat, for those of you that don't have holes in your table. And what I'm going to do now is the stitch that sometimes we call the bead stitch or the bean stitch. And it's, as you'll notice here, it's right between there. So that stitch is just going to kind of highlight this as it comes around there. I could have even changed colors with it, but this almost looks like you've, put together an embroidery pattern. I got to get a hold of this back here. It's catching on things. Comments, questions? Now on this particular one, I am going to do a reverse because I see there's like a couple of stitches at the lead part that I'm going to take out. But because I reversed over them, you can see right there, I'm going to take those stitches out, but I've reversed over it, so it's going to be just fine when I get finished with that. But you can see I could then come back and I could put some fabric in here. I could overlap something on top of it. You can do all types of things. So I think what we'll do to finish up today is show you some projects over here. And trust me, I'll get back to finishing that first one, and I'll let you know what I did by putting a comment on the Sew Steady and Westerly site. So I think you've seen this. That was my project, my pillow, but I wanted you to see up close here because this is where I have 2 colors of thread. And you will notice that it's not causing any eyesight issues. You're not looking at it and going, oh, it's thicker there than it is here. The blue is what I put on first, and the lavender is what I put on second. But you can see also up here, I did not want to use those cording stitches and have to figure out what to do with them to finish them up, so I made them go into the border. So a lot of different things that you can do that way. This is a pattern also, and it is called, I don't know where it's gotten to, but it is called Trim the Table. And we have done it. I brought out my spring sample for today. And here it is right here, called Trim the Table. And you notice in here it's done for Christmas, and up here is a napkin. And so for spring, instead of doing just a plain piece in here, I used my embroidery machine and did a design and then put that piece on the side. And this is all done with the circle sewing. It's very easy to do. There is no hand stitching at all because these pieces, the way they're laid on, you come back and you're just going to straight stitch across here. There's a little stitching right there is where it's at. Now I will give you a hint. When you're doing these, cut them out with pinking shears before you turn them. This has the fusible fleece on the back, and then they will turn very nicely. And then after you've pressed this outer edge, I actually like to stitch it, and you can see it's right up close to the edge there. And the way I did that is I used my blind hem foot and set my needle in the far left position, and that makes it very easy to get right close to that edge. This particular project is it's on the online university for the circle sewing, and this is one of the projects we do there. You'll notice I've got my template quilting out here. This part of this circle is not that circle. It's not slotted through or anything. It's actually that this side, this fabric, the back side looks like this. So we do some straight stitching and then fold those flaps down. But all of these circles are created very quickly in the circle sewing on the machine. This is another sample that I've done, and this was one that I was showing how you can do borders with your templates, and this was sampler set templates, and then I embellished it with some circles from the circle sewing. And you can see these up here. And this one was one of the fun ones. This fabric, well, they're all fun, but this fabric had circles on it. So all I did was cut out a square, and then I laid it on a black square. I found the center and did a decorative stitch around, and I'll show it to you from the back. So I didn't do anything here except stitch around here. So it was a straight stitch first, cut off the extra, and then do the decorative stitch. And so I wanted you to see on the back, that's the only stitch that was done. So that particular fabric has 4 different patterns in it, so that's why I did 4 of these. So you can see they're all just a little bit different. But it makes a quick wall hanging. And then this is the quilt. And what I did here is, I honestly will tell you that when I first started with Sew Steady, I was showing off the circle sewing features of the machine or of the table. And so I would go to shows and I would have fat quarters of fabric, and then I would have pieces like the small pieces that I had today that were all ready to go. And so I was just making tons of decorative stitches on fat quarters. No rhyme or reason. And we'll pan out on this in just a minute. But so what we decided to do was, instead of just pitching those fat quarters, might as well use them, cut them up, and make them into a quilt. So Megan, if you can kind of pan around, some of you have probably seen this, but many of you may not have. And you'll notice that this one block up here just has 1 circle in it, but the inside is cut out as well, and then I've got a bunch of decorative stitches. So they're all different, no rhyme or reason, just a lot of playing. And I want her to focus back down on this one just a second as I talk about it. You'll notice this one almost looks like it's got lace around it. It looks like somebody tatted around it. That's because all I did was the decorative, or the straight stitch, and then just did that light open decorative stitch, so it almost looks like it was as a lace. And you'll notice then afterwards this whole quilt was then just meandered. So it was meandered on a long arm. But I just used my fat quarters that I had decorated. Some of them are cut apart, some of them are cut and put back together, just like this one right here. Those were 2 pieces that were cut apart and then put back together. So I hope this opens your eyes a little bit as to what you can do with circle sewing. Circles are extremely popular. When I'm in and out of hotels, you'd be surprised at the art on the wall, even sometimes the carpet. There's a lot of circles in it, and so I take pictures of strange things because then I can try to copy them in a different way on fabric. So if we don't have any more questions, I appreciate you joining me today, and we will see you sometime here in the future because I know we're going to continue with our classes. And I encourage you, this is my public service announcement, I guess. I encourage you to stay in, people. there's too many people in our town that are starting to get out. They're going stir crazy, but it's only going to cause this to be delayed. So stay in, stay safe, and sew your heart away.
We do have one question. It's about the tables. Where can they go to see the difference in the tables?
I'm sure if you go to Sew Study's website, there is probably a chart on there. This table that I'm using is the Wish table. It's 22.5 inches by 25.5 inches. You can get what is called the Giant Wish, which is about 7 or 8 inches longer, and it also has those holes in it. I believe you can get what is called the Large Deluxe table, and the Large Deluxe table has the holes also. So I believe it's like $149. But while you're doing it, you might as well get the Wish because it's got the drawer. I haven't even showed you, and I can tell you and you'll understand what I'm talking about. You can get a light bar. We sell what's called the light stick, and it will be put underneath the end that has the table or the drawer in it. And if you simply take the drawer out, turn on that light stick, which is an LED, you will have a light table. So that whole end of the Wish table becomes your light table. So if you're doing any kind of paper piecing or transferring of an applique design or anything like that, it's a very inexpensive way and gets a much better use. If you're like me, I'm kind of in my sewing room pretty much like I am in my kitchen. I'm running out of space. I don't need all those extra pieces. So if you can eliminate an apparatus, it just makes it so much easier. So those tables are available from your local quilt store, and I always promote you checking there first. If you can't get them, then contact me and we'll get you set up, because I can tell you, you'll absolutely love having one of the Sew Study extension tables in your sewing room. All right, so thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.